Hello and welcome to Craft with Sarah and my last Christmas video for 2024. Today's project was inspired by this wreath-shaped gift box I made as part of the 2022 Christmas Craft Countdown. This is a rather involved project, and if you would like to make this and you don't have the file already, it is available in my shop, so I'll add the link to that in the description of this video. But that is not what I'm making with you today. Today we are doing the poinsettia flowers, which I'm releasing as a free download. A few weeks ago, I was tidying up my craft studio and I came across this project, and I thought it was a little bit of a shame that these beautiful poinsettias only got used on this box, when actually there are so many different ways you can use them in different craft projects. So today we are saying goodbye to the box. Here it is with all those 4 little sections in. I loved making this. But we're just taking those flowers, and I'm going to show you how you can turn them into either a greetings card, here it is, or a shadow box frame. So follow along with me to see how to make the lovely scored effect down all of the leaves in Cricut Design Space, how to size it to fit a card or a frame, and then how to get it all cut out and stuck together to make these beautiful craft projects. Let's get started. You can download the free cutting file for this project at craftwithsarah.com/free-SVGs, or follow the link in the description of this video to go straight to the download page. The download comes in a zip folder, and you need to unzip this before you can upload the files into Cricut Design Space. Once you've downloaded and unzipped the folder, it's time to get the SVG file into Cricut Design Space. Open up Design Space and start a new project, then go to Upload over on the left, and then Upload Image. You can then either click Browse to find a file on your computer or drag and drop it in. Make sure you choose the unzipped version of the folder, and then the file to select is the one that starts SVG in the file name. Click and drag that in, and this is what it will look like. Press Continue, and then Upload. And then Design Space will add it onto the project. I've positioned everything in different places on the screen so that we can format the score lines a little bit easier. Each of these bits of the leaves and also the poinsettia petals will have score lines down them to make them look a little bit more realistic, and so that we can fold them up to give them a little bit of a 3D effect. If you don't have a scoring wheel or stylus, then you could draw those lines with a pen instead, or just delete them. I'll show you how to do all of those options in a moment. First thing we need to do is to ungroup all the layers to separate everything out. So click to select your design, and then press the Ungroup button at the top of the Layers panel. The 2 layers of leaf designs that are up in the top left don't have any score lines on, so I'll move on to this one here. You can see when I clicked it, it's selected this group within the Layers panel, and if I open that up by clicking the arrow, there are 2 bits in here. One is the solid green, which sits at the bottom, and the other on top of that is all of the lines you can currently see. If you don't have a scoring wheel or stylus and you don't want to draw the lines on, you can delete this by clicking that one single layer and then pressing the trash can icon at the top or the delete key on your keyboard. And then you could go and work through all of the other ones that have those lines on to delete them. However, I am going to do mine, so let's undo this. If I was going to set this to a score line, I would open up the group and once again click the layer that's just the little lines on top. Under Operation, change it to Score. It will look a bit weird on the screen now. If I zoom in, you can see better, because when you set something to score, it appears on the screen as dashed lines just to let you know that you have set it to score, but it won't actually be dashed once it scores. It will score it in nice solid lines. If you wanted to draw this with a pen instead of selecting Score under the Operations menu, you would choose Pen, and then you can change the colour to one that kind of matches so that you can make a nice subtle effect on top of the leaf. If you use the pen or the scoring stylus or scoring wheel, there's one extra step you need to do. I'm just going to change this one back to score because I'll be scoring mine. What you need to do once you've set the line to either draw or score is click to select the group that contains the layer underneath and that new one that you've just changed. So you can see here I've got them both selected, and then down the bottom of the layers panel press attach. Attach is what tells the Cricut that we want it to do either the drawing or the scoring on top of that green piece of card. And then once you've done that, you could drag it over, and this one here, this top right leaf, lines up against this one. You can see this area here, and this pointy bit here, and there's a pointy bit here. These all align with that layer, and also this bit here, so you can see where to put it. We then need to do the same for the other ones. I'll run through this one a bit quicker, so I'll open up the group and click on the black lines, change it to score, click to select this whole group and attach. And then you can drag it into position. So this one just kind of goes on top and it ends up filling in the gaps around the edge from the one underneath. So you see that now looks much fuller and prettier. And then for the red, we'll start with the biggest one. Open up the mini group, click on the black line layer, change it to whatever you want to do with it or delete it. Select the group and attach. And again, that one just kind of goes in the middle like that. The reason we're lining them up is to make the next step where we turn this into a finished greetings card or a shadow box frame a little easier. For the next two, it doesn't really matter which way round you do them. I'm just going to run through these quickly and get all those score lines formatted and get them into place. Like that. And then finally, there's the little yellow bit to go in the middle. Now, this will now be appearing underneath everything because when you attach something, it moves it to the top of the layers panel. To make it so that we can still see the middle, click it and then press Arrange, Bring to Front, and now it will appear on top. And this is now looking much nicer than it did when we first loaded it into Design Space. The next thing to do is to turn it into either a greetings card or a shadow box, or just resize it and cut it out as it is if you don't want to add anything else to it. The easiest way to resize this is to press Select All at the top of the screen and then press the Group button at the top of the Layers panel. That means that we can now click it and resize it and everything changes in proportion. You can type in the width and height boxes up here and press Enter, and the other one will change too to make sure it all stays looking lovely. I'm going to show you how to put this on the front of a greetings card. To make it a little bit easier, I'll hide the poinsettia from the screen so that we can see the whole thing for making the card. So I've clicked it, then hover over the group in the Layers panel and click on the eye icon, and that will hide it from screen. It's still there, we can bring it back on at any point by hovering and clicking the eye again, but I'll just hide it for now. I'll be making a 5x7" card, so let's go over to Shapes on the left and then choose a square. You can then close this box by clicking the little arrow here, or you can click Shapes again. It used to disappear automatically when you selected the shape, but it doesn't seem to do that anymore. Click the padlock icon above the width and the height box to open it out, and then I'm going to make my width 10 inches and my height 7, so that when this is folded in half, it will make a 5x7" card. And we'll make it a nice red, the same red as the poinsettia petals. And I want to add a score line down the middle of this to make it easier to fold. So go into Shapes and choose a score line. Set it to 7 inches, and then I'll drag a box around both of those and press Align, Center, and then just like we did with the poinsettia, we need to attach those two layers together. And then I'll choose another rectangle and then get rid of that one and build up some layers on the front of the card. Let's go for 1/2 inch smaller on each side. So this one will be 6.5, nope, wrong way around, 4.5 wide by 6.5 tool. And then I think a nice yellow or maybe a gold. Whichever colour I cut the middle of the poinsettia out, this will be the same. And then I want one more rectangle in the middle, so we'll duplicate. And this time I'll make it 1/4 of an inch smaller, so 4.25 by 6.25. I've got some nice kind of traditional poinsettia and holly pattern paper that I think would look really nice on the front of this greetings card. So for this one, I'm going to make it a really obvious colour that's definitely not something I would actually use, to remind myself when I come to cut it out that this will be the shape that I want to cut for my patterned paper. Then we can turn our poinsettia back on, click it and go Arrange, Bring to Front and move it over. It's too big at the moment because it's overlapping my score line down here, and if you do that and make it too big, then it won't fit into either your envelope or presentation box. As this card will end up fairly thick because of all of the layers, and I'm going to be kind of giving them a little bit of a 3D effect too, a presentation box can be a little bit better for giving this than an envelope as it's got more space inside. I do have separate tutorials with videos and free SVGs on making both handmade envelopes and presentation boxes, so I'll drop the links to those in the description of this video if you're watching it on YouTube, or if you're watching it on my website, I'll add the links underneath this video so you can scroll down to go to those. This is looking a little bit empty at the moment at the bottom, so let's add in a sentiment to go in that space. I'll go into shapes again and another rectangle or square, and this time let's go 3.75 inches wide and 1.75 tall. I think that will fit the space nicely. It does. Let's just have that a little bit higher, I think. Maybe a little smaller. All right, so let's go for that yellow or gold again. And then I want one more, and I'm going to add a greeting on here that the Cricut will draw with the pens. So this one will be white so that the pens can show up on it. And I'll go for 1/4 of an inch smaller on each side, which is 3.5 by 1.5. So I'll just have that nice yellow or gold border. To find a greeting, go into Images and just type in a little bit of what you want. I'm going to go just Merry Christmas. And as I want to do this with the pens, let's click the filter icon and change it to Draw. Then it's only going to show me images with the pens. I have the Cricut Access subscription, so I can use any of these. If you don't, then just make sure that you are choosing ones that come up as free. Otherwise, there'll be a charge to use that particular image. Or, of course, you could upload something custom into Design Space instead of using Cricut Access. I think I'll go for this one. Make it a little bit smaller. That fits in that space quite nicely. Okay, I think I'll keep it as the black pen. I might change it later on. The Cricut doesn't actually know what colour you put in, so I might decide to change the colour later. I want this to be exactly in the middle of the white. So with the greeting selected, I can press Shift on my keyboard and choose the white to select them both. You can double check by looking in the Layers panel. These have both got the green background behind them, which means they're both selected. And then go Align and then Center, and that's perfectly put that greeting in the middle of the white. Then we just need to attach them, so press Attach on that one. And now this is all ready for me to save and then cut out. So I'll give it a little save first. And then have a look at what happens when I press Make. This will separate out all the colours for you, and if you have done a greeting, you should see it on top of that white rectangle, which this one is. You can change the paper size in the drop down here, and you will need to do that for every colour. And if you want to, you can click and drag to move things about to take up less space on your cardstock. For instance, that's a shame that won't quite fit in there, but if I do this, that's using up a little bit less of the space, which means I'll have all this bit down on the bottom to use on another project another day. All of the layers you added the score lines to, or draw lines if you decided to do it with a pen, should show up with those lines on top of the corresponding piece, just like these two. So go ahead, get all your bits of paper looking as you want them to, and then press continue and get everything cut out from cardstock with your Cricut. Now, before I move on to showing how to put this together, I just want to show how it could look if you decide to put the poinsettia inside a box frame or a shadow box instead of using it on a greetings card. Here's an example of how it could look if this was going into a frame. I measured the inside spacer of my frame to get this outside size so that I know how big to make it, which was 9 by 9 inches. And I've done this in a bright purple because again, I'm going to cut this from some pattern scrapbook paper to add a little bit of extra visual interest into the frame. I then added 2 squares into the middle and then my poinsettia on top. And the poinsettia is formatted exactly the same way as I showed you at the beginning of this video. If you'd like a more detailed step-by-step on how to design your own shadow box frames in Cricut Design Space, I have a separate video on that which goes into how I achieve the same thing as you can see on the screen here, but in lots more detail. Again, I'll drop the link to that tutorial in the description of this video if you're watching on YouTube, or underneath this video if you're watching it on my website. But now I'm going to go take a break and get everything cut out, and then we'll see how to put together both the greetings card and the shadow box version of this wonderful paper poinsettia. Here are all the pieces of my shadow box version of the poinsettia cut out, and I've laid all the bits one on top of the other to check that I'm happy with all the colours. So if I lift it up a bit, you can see I've used a gold mirror card for the middle of the poinsettia and the bit around the edge here, and then I've got my lovely pattern paper as the background. The poinsettia goes together the same way for this one as it does on the greetings card, so I thought I'd show you this one just because it's a bit bigger so it'll be easier to see what I'm doing. I'm going to move the red bits away and start with the 2 green bits that have got the score lines on. Now I used a textured card for these, which probably wasn't the best idea because now the score lines don't show up very well, but they should still be there enough to be able to fold up the leaves. Take a scraper tool or something else that's got a nice, smooth, strong edge on it, maybe a ruler or even a credit card or something like that. Just be careful you don't snap it if you're using a credit card. And then each of these leaves has got a vertical line going downwards on it. So I'm going to place that over that vertical line and then just gently squeeze either side. So I'm squeezing it around the edge of my scraper tool to fold it up. And then I'll flatten it out a little bit so it's just got kind of a gentle bend in it to make it look a bit more realistic. And then do the same for all of them. So I'm just putting that roughly down the middle, bending upwards, and then flattening it out a little bit. So I've got that one, and then one more. Then I'm going to do exactly the same for the other green piece that's got those matching lines. If you did this with the pen tool instead of the scoring tool, you can still do the same effect. Just follow that vertical line and fold it up. And if you erased all the lines completely in Design Space, again, you can still do it. Just kind of follow the point on the top to where it meets the bottom so you can get halfway. It doesn't need to be exact, but just sort of roughly. Giving them a lovely natural bend to them. And then for the red petals, you're doing exactly the same thing. Now you might notice that your red bits look a little bit different to mine. It's because on the version of the file that you get, I've made the little circle in the middle a little bit bigger because these were a little bit flimsy for me. I didn't want to risk the petals tearing off, so I've just joined them together a little better on the version that you get. But it's exactly the same thing. down the middle, and then flatten out a little bit. So I'm going to speed this up now and whiz through all 3 of the red pieces. Right, that's all of those folded out. You can see even just from placing them on top of each other, that's now got a lot of lovely depth and dimension to it. So now I can start sticking these to my background. I've already glued these 2 pieces in the middle, and then we'll start with these ones. And I'm going to, I think, glue this one and then use foam squares to give the one with the holly leaves on it a little bit of depth. But it's completely up to you. However you decide you want to do it is absolutely fine. And there's no right or wrong way up. You can rotate it round if you want to, just to get the best option based on what it is that you're making. I'm using Barely Art glue for this project. I like it because it doesn't bend or wrinkle the card like some glues can do. I also like Collel glue for the same reason. Let's go for there. So I'm overlapping into the gold a little bit. Then for this piece, let's turn it upside down. Add some foam squares to the back. You want a good amount on if you are using foam squares. Try and get into all the sticky out bits like I'm doing now. But as well as doing this, we also need to put some in the middle, because if you didn't add anything into this big section here, you'll find that it will kind of bend downwards like that and touch the layer underneath, because there won't be anything to hold it in place. But adding foam squares into the middle bit makes sure it will all be nice and flat, which is what we want for a nice consistent bit of depth across the whole piece. Now I'm peeling the tops off of the foam squares to reveal the stickiness underneath. Okay, so we can line this up and it will match up with the holly pieces on the one underneath. It might take a little bit of moving it round until you get it lined up. But for me, that's this way round. And push down to stick. Next up, we've got the 2 green bits. Now these are actually the same size, so it doesn't matter which way round you put them. But one of them will line up with the edges you can see on here. It won't line up 100% because we've added that fold in, but it gives you that idea of where it goes. You can either glue or foam square, or as I'm going to do, you can use a glue gun. So I've got my glue gun all heated up. I'll add some to the back of that circle and then line it back up roughly with all the shapes and push down. If you want it to be stuck on a little better, you can add some of the glue underneath the leaves as well. So maybe just a little dab to give it a bit more, but obviously the more you add to the leaves, the more it's going to stick them down and take out that kind of 3D effect that we've gone for with the folding. So I would use it sort of sparingly, maybe just a little bit on those bigger ones and leave the smaller ones as they are. Then next we've got the other one, and this will go sort of round at an angle so it ends up filling in all the gaps. And I'm just going to fold these up a little bit for a bit more dimension and to make sure it can go over all these leaves. And then a nice big blob of my glue gun in the middle. And stick it down. Next up, we've got the 3 red bits. And again, we're sort of alternating these round a little bit so that each time we're filling in where there are holes. So this time it's going to be more like it's lined up with that very first light green one, more like that. And this is the biggest of the 3 red bits. Now remember, yours are going to have a bit more card in the middle to stick it on, whereas mine have just got this tiny little circle, so it'll be a bit more tricky for me. Put that one in there. And then the other two, it doesn't matter which way around you put these on, but just try and rotate them round so that each time it's filling in the gaps. And I got one more in here. Just going to use the edge of my scraper tool to push that on because I don't want to burn my fingers. But now that's dried a bit, that's okay. You should have a little bit of wiggle room to move things about while the glue's drying, if you're not quite happy with the positioning. And then the last thing is the little bit of gold or yellow to go in the middle. So again, just a little tiny bit of that glue gum, or however you're sticking them on. A foam square would also work well for this bit. And then, ooh, if I can pick it up, just goes right in the middle. That'll help push it down a little bit as well to join everything together. And I've just got a few strings of my glue to pull away. But that is my paper poinsettia all finished, and it's got lots of beautiful depth on it. It's looking really dimensional and gorgeous. Just going to turn that round a little bit to fill in the shapes a bit better, but I'm really happy with that. I'll put this into the frame at the end because I want to give that glue gun chance to really dry. So next, let's move on to the greetings card version. Here's my greetings card version all cut out, and I've used brighter colours for this one to show how you can get a different effect depending on the type of cardstock that you use. So this one is a very matte effect card. It's sort of, I say duller colours, but I just sort of mean not as bright. It definitely doesn't look dull. It's more sort of vintage and traditional looking, whereas this one is very bright and in your face. But it's the same poinsettia flower, just done two different ways. I've already done the folding up on this one for all of the pieces, but I need to stick it all together. Unfortunately, my pen I used on my Cricut was running out a little bit, so I didn't quite get as good effect as I was hoping, but it still looks really nice. Then I've got a super sparkly glitter card for these bits. All right. Fold the base card down the score line, and then if you've got a brayer tool or similar, go down that line to make it really crisp. And then this is the patterned paper I've used this time. This will be glued right on top. This is a really nice pattern on the other side as well. I hate it when you get paper and you really like both sides of it because you've got to choose which one to use. This will go right in the middle of my gold. Oh, got a little bit there that just needs pulling off. So I've just got that nice shiny border around the edge. And then I'll glue this onto the front of the card. Adding lots of glue on here because it's going to be quite heavy with all those poinsettia pieces on top. And there's that on there. And then we can add the flower. It's much smaller this time around, so I'm going to use glue and foam squares instead of the glue gun because I'm messy with a glue gun at the best of times and I don't think I could do it nicely on this now that it's this size. Just trying to work out which way around I want to do it. So it doesn't really matter, you can choose it based on how your card looks. I'm going to go that way, I think. And this one I'll glue on. As I said earlier in the Design Space section, these will be best if you give them in a presentation box rather than an envelope because they are going to end up quite thick. That's that one. But even so, I'm still going to glue this one on. If I can work out which direction to do it, that way around. Rather than using foam squares this time, just to help with that dimension a little bit. So I don't want it to be so thick that it won't even fit in the presentation boxes. And then next up, one of the leaves. And again, I'm gonna line that up, or at least try to. I should have worked that out before I put the glue on. I think it's that way around. Nope, that wasn't right because I've got a pointy bit up there. There we go. And then once again, I think just a little bit of glue under some of those bigger petals to help hold them in place. Then for the next one, I'll take my foam squares and put a little bit in the middle and use that to give a bit of pop. There we go. And then again, I think for this one, I'm also going to do the foam squares. This was one of the main reasons I made your middle bits bigger, because this one is tiny. There's hardly anything in there holding it all together. Okay, on that one. Then the next one I'll glue, because this is getting a little bit deep now. I'm probably going to need to hold that in place until the glue dries. Might be okay. There we go. And then a little foam square for the last one. On there. And then glue for the middle bit. Now I've just had a horrible realization that I think I've stuck this flower on too low down. And I might not fit my sentiment on. What I should have done was when I put that first bit on, was to place this bit. Oh, actually it's just about going to be okay. I should have placed that on and then stuck the flower on so that I knew it was definitely all going to fit. But never mind. We're good. Okay. Foam square on the underlying one, my gold glittery bit. So this will go underneath some of those leaves. Oh gosh. Not doing a very good job of this now. That's not in the middle. I'm overlapping some of the very bottom leaves, the ones that didn't have the bend on them. Like that. And then I'll glue the sentiment one on top. And that is my greetings card all finished. You can see as I tilt it that it does have a lot of depth and dimension on. It will fold or press pretty flat if you did want to put it in an envelope. But as I said, those presentation boxes will be a little bit better. And then I can bring my shadow box design back in. I've got my frame here. I've taken the glass out because otherwise it would just reflect on my camera lights. But you would have the glass in there. Make sure you give it a nice clean first. And then my spacer, my wooden spacer, is inside. Or it was. Now I've got to put it back in. There we go. And then this just sits on the back of that. And then put the back of the frame on. One of my little metal bits is causing me issues. There we go. And then you can fold all the tabs back in. Turn it around for the moment of truth. There we go. How pretty is that? I love it. That'll look really nice displayed in the home this Christmas. And you could even give it as a gift with a matching greetings card. And if you wanted to go even one step further, don't forget in my SVG shop, there is the original gift box which inspired today's project. So you could do a proper, impressive gift with a frame, a card, and a wreath box filled with lots of delicious treats. But whatever you decide, I hope you enjoyed watching along with this video with me for my last Christmas project of 2024. If you did, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to my YouTube channel for loads more Cricut crafts and free SVGs. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!